Discover the incredible love story. A peasant woman's heartwarming marriage reveals her husband's scandalous secret. In the small town of Maple Creek, Wisconsin, Clara lived a life steeped in hard work and unyielding love. Each day, she woke before dawn, the crisp air biting at her skin as she trudged through the fields with dirt-stained hands, cultivating hope for her 3 children. The farm was their sanctuary, yet it bore the weight of every struggle. There were months where the bounty was slim, and nights filled with worries about paying bills. But Clara's spirit shone as bright as the sun rising over the cornfields, fueled by her dreams of a better life for her little ones. Then came Jake, a soft-spoken veteran with stormy eyes and stories of courage etched in the lines of his face. One fateful afternoon, while Clara sipped coffee alone at the local diner, his laughter spilled over the chatter, captivating her attention. Here was a man forged in the crucible of battle, yet somehow, the moment he offered her a smile, Clara felt a sense of respite. Their first conversation crackled with electricity, a deep connection that twinkled like stars in the Midwest sky. Days turned into nights filled with whispered hopes and light-hearted dreams. They took long walks under a symphony of crickets, sharing pieces of their hearts. The townspeople watched, some with raised eyebrows and others with jealousy, as the once unnoticed farmer found solace in a man with a past. Clara watched as whispers of disapproval tangled in the air, infecting friendships and turning loyalty into strife. But none of that could extinguish the flame between them. In a moment where passion and heartache intertwined, Clara said yes to love, yes to a future with Jake, despite the creeping judgments swirling around them. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. But life is hardly ever without its shadows. Just as Clara and Jake settled into a warm embrace of love and togetherness, tragedy struck Maple Creek, a heart-wrenching accident that shook the very fabric of their community. In the confusion and sorrow, rumors began to swirl like a bitter wind, unleashing doubts about Jake's character. Clara stood at the center of a storm, her heart torn between fierce loyalty to her husband and the nagging doubts planted within her, a haunting echo from their judgments and whispers. As tears pricked her eyes and confusion muddled her thoughts, Clara chose to fight back. She rallied her neighbors, organizing a fundraiser to uplift the families most affected by the tragedy, showcasing their community's resilience. This act of kindness momentarily softened the unforgiving stares of disapproval, threading a fragile web of understanding. Yet, as the air thickened with tension, Clara found herself facing the most crucial moment of her life. In a passionate speech that echoed with raw truth, she stood before the townspeople, her heart pounding like a drum. With courage igniting her voice, she demanded honor and acceptance for Jake, urging unity over division. Would love thrive in the face of such swirling chaos? Could a community shed its prejudices and embrace the goodness that Clara and Jake had forged? As murmurs swirled among the crowd, the atmosphere vibrated with anticipation, and Clara grasped Jake's hand tighter, clinging to hope. Would it be enough, or would the storm sweep them both away? As Clara stood before the crowd, the weight of her words pressed against her chest. She could feel the eyes of her neighbors boring into her, each gaze a mix of disbelief and speculation. Families she had known for years, friends she thought would stand by her in support, now looked at her as if she were defending the very essence of sin itself. But Clara's heart surged with a fire she had never felt before, a fierce resolve that would not be quenched by the tempest of doubt. Jake is not just a man with a past, she proclaimed, her voice cutting through the murmurs like a beacon in a storm. He is a man who has fought for this country, who carries the weight of his sacrifices with grace. He deserves to be seen for who he is now, not who he was before. The crowd began to shift uneasily, some faces softening, others hardening further. Clara felt Jake's hand tremble in hers as they shared a moment of breath and unspoken promise to weather whatever may come. Just as she was about to speak again, A familiar voice rang out from the back of the crowd. What about the accusations? Can you really blame us for questioning his character? It was Martha, a longtime friend whose expression was a mask of concern mixed with disbelief. Clara's heart sank. She hesitated, then took a deep breath. Accusations can be just words and accusations, Clara spoke with conviction. But the truth? The truth is that Jake has stood beside us, held our children, and worked hard for our town. He is not this monster the rumors paint him to be. The crowd murmured again, a tumult of voices blending anxious disbelief with quiet agreement. Clara pressed on. We are a community built on love and support. Yes, we all have shadows, our sins may differ, but we all deserve the chance to change, to grow, and to be loved for who we are today. In that moment, Clara saw something shift in the crowd. A few heads nodded. Friends exchanged glances, weighing the truth against the bitter winds of rumor. But the tension loomed, thick and heavy, ready to snap like a taut string. Then, from the edge of the gathering, an unexpected voice rang out, clear and strong. It was Samuel, an old farmer who commanded the respect of the town. Clara is right. We have all made mistakes in our lives, but who are we to cast the first stone? The words rippled through the crowd, sparking hesitant murmurs of agreement. Encouraged, Clara felt hope swell inside her. Change is possible. Just like every season finds its way after winter, we too can find warmth again if we choose to let it in. But just as Clara began to feel the tide shift in their favor, another figure emerged, Mike, the local sheriff known for his hard-nosed approach, his eyes narrow and skeptical. And what if we let him in and it all goes wrong? What guarantees do we have that he won't hurt us all? The question lay heavy, chilling the atmosphere. Clara's heart raced, emotions merging into a swirling mix of fear and desperation. She looked at Jake, whose eyes mirrored her own uncertainty, yet brimming with quiet strength. I don't have guarantees, but I have love. I believe in the goodness of people. The words tumbled out before she could stop them, an unfiltered surge of raw emotion. But would love alone be enough to bridge the chasm of doubt and fear? As Clara's chest tightened with both hope and trepidation, she turned her attention back to the crowd. Would they see her truth? It wasn't about Jake's past, but the love that was possible in spite of it? Just as Clara began to wonder if she had made any impact at all, she heard a rustle and saw a little girl, Ellie, shyly stepping forward to stand beside Clara. My mama says love is the strongest thing we have. Her small voice echoed through the tension, innocence piercing the veil of skepticism. Could a child's faith become the catalyst that transformed the town? Clara's heart raced as she stared into the crowd. What would happen next? Would Maple Creek rise from its shadows, or would love prove too fragile to withstand the storm? Clara's heart raced as she glanced down at Ellie, her small frame perfectly embodying innocence in a moment heavy with uncertainty. The girl, with her wild curls and big, trusting eyes, seemed almost to glow under the fading sunlight. In that profound silence, Clara felt the warmth of the child's belief washing over her, igniting a spark within the crowd that had been smothered under layers of fear for far too long. Love is strong, Ellie declared again, her voice ringing sweetly against the harsh judgment surrounding them. Clara smiled at her, feeling a wave of gratitude rise. It was a reminder that real strength often comes in the simplest packages. Clara turned back to the crowd, clutching Ellie's small hand tightly in her own, an anchor in the turbulent sea of adult emotions. Seizing the moment, she continued, Look at Ellie. In her eyes, there's no bitterness, no prejudice. Just pure hope. Don't we owe it to ourselves, to our children, to be better? To embrace our neighbors and find common ground in love rather than fear? The crowd shifted uneasily, but Clara could see a few faces beginning to soften. She focused on Martha, who appeared deep in thought, her frown loosening ever so slightly as she watched Ellie. Imagine if we let love lead us instead of our doubts. What if we chose to believe in people's capacity to change? A murmur passed through the crowd, this time tinged with something softer, curiosity mingling with hesitation. Samuel stepped forward again, his voice echoing over the shifting emotions. What if we encouraged Jake to be a part of this community, rather than shunned him? Would that not show him he is valued? We all deserve a second chance. The sheriff, Mike, shifted his weight, his expression slightly unfaltering but intrigue evident. And if something goes wrong? How do we hold our community together then? His voice was steady, but Clara could sense a crack forming in his facade. How we respond to scars tells us who we are. Womanly authority emanated from Clara now. We can't go back. We can only move forward. Yes, there are risks. But isn't that true in all aspects of life? She felt the urgency as she locked eyes with Mike. We have to toughen up. This isn't just about Jake anymore, it's about all of us. The crowd was coiling around her words, a rubber band stretched tight, waiting for a release. Clara felt every gaze upon her, some still unmoved, others grappling with their own beliefs. Slowly, the tension began to shift like the wind. Samuel took another step closer, the cracks of doubt in the people around him widening. Let us give him a chance, Samuel declared. What if we show Jake we're bigger than our fears? He turned to Jake, whose face remained stoic yet hopeful. If we take this step together, we can prove that love can heal the deepest wounds. In that moment, Clara felt a flicker of conviction. Who wants to be the first to step forward and choose love? To stand with us? She stood tall, her heart pounding, and for the first time, she didn't feel alone. A hand shot up at the front, then another. Clara's breath caught in her throat as faces of support began to emerge from the crowd. One by one, hands raised in solidarity, voices mingling into a rising chorus of affirmation. But then, just as hope sparked, a chilling reminder came crashing in. What if Jake has not changed? A voice creaked from the back, shattering the fragile moment of togetherness. Every heart turned as fear spread like wildfire once more. Clara's stomach twisted at the familiar shadows lurking. Had they dared too far? Was she risking everything for a battle they might still lose? The question hung in the air like a storm cloud brewing heavy with rain. What would Jake say in this moment? Could he steal the fear away, or would it pierce through what they had begun to build? As she turned to him, Clara wondered, was the retreating shadow of doubt about to swallow their first flicker of hope whole? Jake shifted uncomfortably under the weight of the crowd's stares. Clara could see the quick rise and fall of his chest, the flicker of uncertainty crossing his features. He was no longer just the face of fear. He was also the embodiment of hope, but only if they allowed him to be. Maybe I haven't changed, Jake started hesitantly, his voice barely making it above the whispers. Clara felt her heart sink as her worst fears echoed his words. But then he straightened, a spark igniting in his deep-set eyes. But I want to change. I want to prove to you all that I'm not just my past. Clara squeezed Ellie's hand, feeling the child's faith brace her own courage. You have to let him try, she said to the crowd, her voice firm but compassionate. Everyone deserves a chance to prove who they are now, not who they were. The murmurs around her intensified, echoing the conflict within her. What if he fails? Someone shouted back, uncertainty lacing the words. What if he hurts someone again? Clara turned her gaze to Jake, reading the sincerity etched on his face. The truth is, keeping him out won't shield us from hurt. It will only isolate him further. And fear will multiply in that isolation. A hush fell over the crowd as they felt the weight of her words settle, causing the tension to ripple through the air. Watching Jake, Clara saw his shoulders relax just a bit. I want to make amends, he said, his voice stronger now. I've been thinking about community service. Maybe I can start there. I can volunteer, help in whatever way you need me to. I just want to be part of something good. Samuel nodded, stepping closer to Jake. And I'll be there with you. We can give him a chance to learn, to grow. But it's up to all of us to welcome him back into the fold. Martha's brows furrowed in thought. Clara saw the gears turning in her mind. It's not easy to let go of our fears, but if we don't at least try, what kind of community will we be? She murmured, voice uncertain yet curious. Exactly, Clara exclaimed, emboldened by Martha's words. We're not just acting for ourselves. We're setting an example for our kids. We can be the change that shapes their world. Ellie tugged at Clara's sleeve, eyes bright with excitement. Please! Let him be good. I believe in him. The crowd began to shift again, grappling with hope and doubt, their expressions mixed. Clara held her breath, waiting for the tide to fully turn. Could the warmth of Ellie's innocence be powerful enough to break down the walls? I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust, Jake declared, his tone steady but softening with vulnerability. Just let me show you who I can be. Suddenly, a woman in the back shouted, But what if we trust him and he betrays us? The words hung heavy, a raw, gaping wound amidst the emerging sense of unity. Clara's heart dropped, but a fire ignited once more. There are no guarantees in life, she said, her voice rising above the doubt. But love is the only path that leads to healing. We can't be paralyzed by fear. We have to choose each other. As Clara searched the crowd, glimmers of understanding sparked in the eyes around her. Small gestures were noted, people nodding, others leaning forward in their spots. Would this moment be the turning point? Would they find the strength to act against their instincts for the sake of something greater? Alone in her thoughts, Clara felt Ellie's tiny fingers squeeze hers tighter. And somewhere in the distance, the sound of thunder rumbled ominously. The storm was coming. Would it wash away their newfound hope, or would it strengthen the bond they were beginning to forge? Jake took a deep breath, ready to step closer to the edge of this precipice, just as Clara whispered the words that danced in her heart, Will you stand with us, together, and dare to believe? The first drops of rain began to patter on the ground, a soft reminder of the impending storm. Faces turned upward, expressions painted with uncertainty and anticipation. Clara felt the pressure in the air, a fleeting moment like the stillness before chaos. The thunder growled low, an echo of doubt, yet here they stood, a circle of ebbing tension and rising courage. Ellie tugged at Clara's hand, her eyes wide, glistening with unshed tears that sparkled like starlight. Mommy, please, she whispered, her voice trembling but hopeful. He can be good. I just know it. The innocence in her words ignited a fierce protection within Clara. It was a reminder that children often saw what adults themselves struggled to acknowledge. Jake, she called softly, steering the focus back to him. What if we made a plan? A real plan so everyone can see you're committed. She could feel the stirring breeze shift the mood, coaxing the doubts aside just a bit. Jake nodded, his gaze flickering over the crowd. I think I could use some of you with me. Maybe we start a community garden or a cleanup day. His eyes met Clara's, searching for reassurance. Something where I can show you I can work alongside you, not just for me but for all of us. The crowd murmured, weighing the idea. Samuel stepped forward, a steady presence breaking through the remaining hesitation. We've talked about revitalizing this town, bringing the community together again, he said firmly. What if Jake leads this effort? We help him, and he helps us. We build something good together. A ripple of excitement coursed through those present. Martha raised her voice. I might even help with organization. We've needed a project that involves everyone, anyway. The murmurs shifted again, this time in favor of cooperation. Clara watched as the cloud of doubt slowly peeled away. It's not about forgetting the past, she said, weaving hope into her words. It's about choosing to move forward. We can support each other, build trust brick by brick. Just then, another voice rang through the crowd, this time more resolute. But what if he slips? What if he messes it up? It was a local shopkeeper Clara remembered, someone who had been there during the hardest of times. The community's fear was palpable. It's a risk, Jake admitted, eyes now filled with determination. I'm willing to take it. But I need you all with me every step of the way. Ellie's voice cut through the tension like a beacon. We can help him. Right, everyone? She turned to the crowd, her tiny stature making her words seem even bolder. Clara felt tears prick her eyes. The crowd hesitated, and then one by one, heads began to nod. All right, someone finally said, a hesitant smile beginning to spread on their face. Let us give him a chance. We can try it. Just this once. A wave of agreement spread, and Clara felt the warmth of unity filling the air. Yet, at that moment, A deafening clap of thunder echoed, as if warning them of the storm to come. But they weren't alone. Clara reached for Jake's hand, squeezing it tightly, letting the crowd's energy amplified between them. "Let us start by cleaning up the square tomorrow," Samuel proposed. "Jake, you can organize teams. We'll figure this out. You'll show us." "Absolutely." Jake nodded, his newfound resolve piercing through the shadows of doubt. "And I promise, I won't let you down." With the rain starting to pour, the crowd began to disperse, but there was a sense of hope that hadn't been there before. Clara turned to Ellie, who jumped up and down, excitement bubbling over. That's when Jake caught her gaze again, urgency intricately laced with vulnerability in his eyes. "Clara," he started, each syllable heavy with meaning. "Don't worry, Jake," she assured him softly, determination etched in her tone. "We'll stand together." But as they parted ways, Clara felt the first gust of wind rush past. The storm had indeed arrived. It thundered around them, yet somehow, within her heart, a stronger storm of hope surged. What lay ahead would make every effort worth it, and deep within the shadows, one question loomed, pressing loudly: would the storm bring cleansing renewal, or catastrophic ruin? The rain fell heavier now, sheets of water cascading down like nature's curtain. Clara hurried alongside Ellie, their footsteps a steady rhythm against the gravel path, echoing the pulse of the town. Her mind was racing, caught up in the whirlwind of emotions sparked by today's events. She glanced down at Ellie, soaking in her daughter's buoyant spirit, still vibrant despite the darkening sky. "Mommy, can I help with the garden?" Ellie asked, her voice breaking through the sound of rain. The girl's face lit up, her smile genuine and unguarded, a sharp contrast to the doubts swirling around them. Clara squeezed her hand, pride warming her heart. "Of course, sweetheart. We'll make it beautiful," she replied, imagining a place filled with colors and life, where they could all come together, planting seeds not just in the ground, but in each other's hearts. As they approached their home, the familiar creaking of the porch greeted them. Clara sighed, the weight of the day settling on her shoulders. She opened the door to the smell of warm apples and cinnamon wafting from the kitchen. George was in there, his back turned as he busily prepared dinner. She caught a quick glimpse of the wholesome family life they had built together, a sanctuary amidst the turmoil. "Hey, honey, how was your day?" George called out, turning with a smile that sometimes made her forget the world outside. But today, she hesitated. How could she explain the storm that had risen within the community, the hope evolving into something solid? Would he understand her fear? "Jake has proposed we start a community garden," she ventured, watching the way his smile faded slightly as she mentioned Jake's name. The air thickened, filled with unspoken words. "A garden? So it's all that easy for him to win their hearts back?" George commented, his voice edged with skepticism. Clara felt a pang in her chest. She didn't want to defend Jake or argue about the past. She just wanted to move forward. "Yes, but it's not just about Jake," Clara insisted. "It's about us, about the community, bringing everyone together again." He crossed his arms, the warmth from the stove illuminating his troubled expression. "That's a nice thought, but what if it turns into a bigger mess? What if he fails?" Clara took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. "What if he doesn't? What if by giving him this chance, we actually heal something? For all our sakes?" The silence hung between them, and she felt a stirring apprehension that perhaps George didn't see the merits of hope as she did. The kitchen clock ticked away the seconds, each sound amplifying their unspoken tension. But then Ellie piped up brightly. "Daddy, we can help him. It'll be fun." She danced around the kitchen, the sound of her laughter a welcome balm. "Ellie, it's not that simple," George began, but Clara cut in. "It could be the start of something good," she said, allowing her gaze to settle firmly on him. "We owe it to the town, to ourselves, to try." As the rain pounded harder against the window, George's expression softened. "I just don't want you to get hurt again, Clara." His voice wavered, revealing the depths of his concern. The storm outside amplified the tumult of emotions inside their home, an unexpected nexus of fear and hope. "We'll be there to catch each other," she whispered, her heart racing, a tremor of anxiety threading through her. "We're stronger together." With that, a flicker of understanding passed between them. It was like a sigh of relief that surged amidst the chaos. Clara realized then that they really were on this journey as one family, a fragile string connecting them all. And just as that thought settled, a loud crack of lightning tore across the night sky, illuminating the darkness outside. The storm was here, fierce and unyielding, but Clara found a flicker of peace within it. She clung to the flame of hope that flickered in her heart, even as she wondered how deep would they all have to dig to pull together the fragments of their lives. But wait. As they pulled closer, was she ready for what this all meant? What would be asked of her? The coming days would reveal more than she ever anticipated. The next morning brought with it a hush, the rain's fury morphing into a gentle drizzle, washing away remnants of the chaotic night. Clara stood at the kitchen window, looking out at the drenched earth, her thoughts still swirling around the community garden. She knew they needed something to bring everyone together, something that could ground their fears and hopes. As she peeled apples for breakfast, her mind wandered back to Jake. She remembered the way his voice had cracked when he spoke of all they'd lost. Could his idea really be the first step toward rebuilding something beautiful? She wanted to believe it. Yet shadows of doubt gnawed at her heart, whispering about the risks. "Mommy, look!" Ellie exclaimed, her excitement breaking Clara's reverie. Clara turned just in time to see Ellie twirling in a circle, her tiny hands flaring out like branches, her laughter infectious against the still damp air. "Can we pick out seeds for the garden today?" Clara couldn't help but smile at her daughter's enthusiasm. "Absolutely. But first, let us eat." They gathered around the table, George joining them with his slightly rumpled shirt and morning stubble. The smell of cinnamon hung in the air as breakfast unfolded in the warm blue light filtering through the clouds. Clara felt the warmth of connection, even if beneath the surface, the day was still fraught with uncertainty. "Tonight, I thought we could talk to the rest of the town at the community meeting," Clara suggested, trying to keep her tone light as she served the girls their breakfast. George raised an eyebrow, tension returning to his demeanor. "You think that's a good idea? A lot of folks are still divided about everything." "Yes, but we have to try. If we don't take the first step, nothing will change," Clara responded, stifling her urge to let the doubt infiltrate her optimism. Ellie, picking at her apple slices, chimed in, "Maybe we can show them how fun a garden is." "I want to plant sunflowers." "Sunflowers it is then," Clara affirmed, her heart warming at Ellie's determination. She felt if her daughter believed wholeheartedly in this, she could too. As the day wore on, the rain dwindled to mere dribbles, leaving behind a wet, glistening world. Clara gathered Ellie, and together they prepared a poster adorned with bright drawings of flowers and vegetables, their colors vibrant against the gray backdrop of the day. They planned on showcasing how the garden could uplift everyone's spirits. With each stroke of the crayon, Clara could feel hope blooming inside her. She glanced at Ellie's face, focused and eager, and could almost forget the weight of George's skepticism and her own lingering doubts. By late afternoon, the town hall buzzed with activity, people trickling in, murmurs mixing with their shared hesitations about Jake's proposal. Clara's heart raced as she and Ellie made their way inside, fingers finding each other in the crowd. The room was filled with familiar faces, some smiling, others frowning. It reminded Clara of the diversity within their community, a patchwork of stories, worries, and wisdom. She felt vulnerable standing there, but also unyielding. Jake stood at the front, his presence commanding attention, yet she could sense the weight of his own fears. As he began to speak, Clara held Ellie's hand tighter, drawing strength from the shared bond, whispering words of comfort to herself. "Tonight's South not just about gardens," Jake said, his voice shaking slightly as he looked around the room. "It's about planting seeds of hope in all of us." Clara caught the momentary flicker of George's eye, wide and caught somewhere between worry and hope. She took a deep breath, ready to step forward when the opportunity arose. But what she didn't expect was the ripple of tension in the crowd, the divide still painfully palpable. As Jake spoke, she had a sudden realization. Their journey wouldn't merely be about planting flowers, it would be about digging deep into the soil of their community's past, facing every hurt, disappointment, and fear that lay buried beneath it all. What would the coming days bring? Clara's heart raced at the thought. Would they find common ground, or would old grievances convince them to abandon hope? As she turned to George, uncertainty flickered between them. The moment of truth was dawning. Could they face it together, and redefine their place in their community? Clara stood quietly, heart pounding, attuned to the currents of emotion swirling in the room. As Jake continued, a palpable tension hung in the air, thick with unspoken fears and long-festering grievances. She could see people shifting in their seats, some rubbing the backs of their necks, others whispering to each other. It was a vivid reminder that coming together meant confronting not just their hopes, but their wounds. The crowd was a blend of old-timers, who had weathered storms both literal and metaphorical, and newcomers still learning the ropes of community life. Clara caught a glimpse of Mrs. Tompkins, a neighbor known for her gardening skills but who now wore a scowl. Calming her nerves, Clara glanced down at Ellie, whose wide eyes brimmed with trust and excitement. That little spark within her emboldened Clara to push past her fears. "Let us make some noise," Clara whispered to Ellie, who nodded solemnly, eager to help. They stepped forward, Clara's courage igniting as she made her way toward Jake, waiting for the right moment to speak. Jake's voice faltered just as Clara reached the front. "I know there has been tension," he said, his eyes scanning the crowd for support. "But a garden, it's not just about food. It's about coming together, sharing smiles, and working hand in hand." The murmurs grew louder. Clara took a deep breath, letting the moment wash over her. She raised her hand. "I have something to say." Heads turned, and a hush fell over the group. She wiped her palms against her jeans, feeling the rough fabric anchor her. "I know it's tough. We've all got our pain, our fears. But we also have hope. Hope isn't about ignoring what has happened. It's about working through it together." Her voice, hesitant at first, began to gain strength. "Ellie and I have been dreaming of a garden. A place where we can plant sunflowers just like Ellie wants. A garden isn't just soil and seeds. It's a reminder that we can grow, no matter how stormy or how fractured life gets." The crowd shifted again, some faces softening, others still guarded. Clara felt the weight of every gaze. She raised her chin. "If we all plant seeds, real ones, and the seeds of forgiveness, we can create something beautiful. Will you help us?" A soft murmur spread through the room, like a breeze carrying the scent of possibility. Clara's heart raced, adrenaline thrumming in her veins. She could almost see the roots taking hold, stabilization where chaos had once reigned. Jake stepped up beside her, a grateful smile tugging at his lips. "Clara's right. We need each other. Will anyone step forward to share what a garden means to you? Let us break down these walls." An older gentleman with a weathered face stood, hands buried in his pockets. "I lost my wife last year, and I didn't think I'd ever bring flowers back to my yard again. But a garden, it sounds like a chance to remember her, to make things bloom once more." Gasps rippled through the crowd, and Clara locked eyes with George, whose brows had unfurled slightly as he listened, the blockade of doubts slowly softening. One by one, others began to stand, sharing their stories, their hopes, their longing for connection. Voices, once quiet and bruised, matched the rhythm of their beating hearts, weaving a new narrative of community. Clara felt a warmth surge within her as bonds began to form. But as she glanced at the faces turned toward her, Clara noticed a shadow lingering at the back of the room, a figure she hadn't expected to see. It was Sarah, the town's fierce critic of change, arms crossed defiantly. Clara's heart twisted. How would she respond? And in that moment, Clara understood that while they had taken a bold step forward, the real challenge was still looming. Could they truly come together to plant seeds of hope amidst the pressures that threatened to pull them apart? As uncertainty filled the air, Clara stood ready, waiting for Sarah's voice to break the growing silence. Would it condemn their efforts or join them? The tension thickened, her heart racing with anticipation for what would come next. Sarah stood, still as a statue, her expression unreadable. Clara felt the tension wrap tighter around her like a vice. People in the crowd whispered among themselves, eyes darting to Sarah and then back to Clara, anticipation crackling like static electricity. Finally, Sarah unfolded her arms. Clara held her breath. "I've lived in this town longer than most of you," she began, her voice steady but sharp. "I've seen dreams come and go, people come and go. And I know what it's like to be let down." She paused, her gaze locking onto Clara. "But I'm listening to you, Clara. I can feel your fire, and it's different." A flicker of hope ignited within Clara. Sarah was known for her fierce opinions and stubbornness. If she was willing to listen. "But a garden?" Sarah continued, her skepticism not fully melted away. "I just worry. We've tried before. So many things have failed." "I understand," Clara replied softly. "But isn't it time to try again? We've all suffered. What if this time could be different? What if we did it together?" The murmurs began to rise again, voices almost blending into a hopeful chorus. Sarah nodded slowly, and Clara saw the tension ease slightly in her shoulders. "All right," Sarah said finally, her voice stronger now. "I suppose I could give it a shot. But it won't be easy. I'm not going to pretend to align my vision with everyone else's." A spark of excitement spread through the crowd. Clara felt Ellie squeeze her hand. This was a breakthrough, the kind they needed and had longed for. One by one, more voices from the crowd stepped forward, not only sharing stories of their losses, but also offering their hands in the promise to work. Someone spoke of the joy of children playing in the dirt, another shared memories of planting tomatoes for years. Each offering was like adding a new thread to a beautifully woven tapestry that was beginning to emerge amidst the uncertainty. Looking out at the shifting energy in the room, Clara sensed a wave of connection rising, a swell that could carry them all forward. She felt lighter, the weight of her fears unraveling as people opened their hearts. Yet, amidst the warmth, Clara noticed Mrs. Tompkins still scowling in her corner. There was hurt there, etched on her face, unwilling to join the movement of hope. Clara felt a flutter of doubt. How could they truly succeed if even one person remained on the sidelines, grappling with their own wounds? She stepped to the side of the room, leading Ellie by the hand. "Mrs. Tompkins," Clara called out gently, "we'd love your help. You have the most beautiful garden in town. What do you think?" All eyes turned toward the woman, whose gaze dropped to the floor. Clara could see the deep well of hesitation in her stance. Everyone awaited her response, the air thick with expectation. Then suddenly, Mrs. Tompkins looked up, her expression catching everyone off guard. "Why do you care what I think?" Her voice trembled, a mix of anger and vulnerability. Clara took a few steps closer, her heart pounding. "Because we need you. We can't do this alone. Your experience, your plants, your wisdom, it all matters. Will you share it with us?" Tears brimmed in the older woman's eyes as Clara spoke from her heart. Would Mrs. Tompkins embrace this chance to grow beyond her hurt, or would she retreat deeper into her solitude? The room was silent, waiting. Clara knew this moment could pivot everything. As the tension held its breath, she felt that they were all standing on the edge of transformation. Would the garden become a place of reconciliation? The answer hung in the air, as vivid and fragile as a budding flower. Clara realized that the battle for community was just beginning. Would they be able to unite despite their differences, or would their roots forever remain tangled? The community meeting had brought a flicker of hope, but Clara felt that the real journey was only beginning. As the days passed, Maple Creek transformed. The garden project went from idea to action, but it wasn't without its growing pains. Clara organized planting days. Families gathered, sowing seeds for vegetables and flowers. At first, some brought their reservations alongside their gardening tools. The doubts were palpable. Clara saw the skepticism in their eyes as they shuffled soil into neat rows, but slowly and surely, the seeds of unity began to sprout. Jake worked side by side with his neighbors, sweat and labor forging connections. He showed a light-heartedness that drew laughter even from the hardest faces. Clara watched, her heart expanding with gratitude, as Jake shared stories of his childhood gardens, painting visions of the blooms they would nurture together. Then, one evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, illuminating the garden in a golden hue, Clara felt an undeniable shift in the air. Muffled laughter mingled with the sound of dirt being turned, and she realized the town had begun to heal. They were no longer just planting seeds, they were planting hope. It was a beautiful paradox. The more flowers grew, the lighter their burdens seemed to become. But doubts still lingered in certain hearts. Clara felt the tension whenever Mrs. Tompkins worked alongside them. The older woman was still hesitant, her tight line of a mouth and furrowed brows often hinted at her unease. Clara knew that if true healing was to be found, every heart must feel included. After one afternoon when the laughter was particularly light, Clara gathered her courage and approached her. "Mrs. Tompkins, would you share your wisdom with us? The flowers you grow are enchanting. I know they could inspire us all to see beyond just plants." Mrs. Tompkins's eyes softened for just the briefest moment. "Why waste time on a garden that'll just die?" she murmured bitterly. "Life can be a bit like that," Clara replied gently. "But maybe, just maybe, if we nurture this together, it can bloom again. And it's not just about what we grow. It's about who we're becoming in the process." Mrs. Tompkins fell quiet, and Clara could see the myriad emotions swirling in her gaze. "Come see my garden. If it survives the winter's end, it can withstand any storm," she finally said, her words a tentative promise. So they went, and as they walked among Mrs. Tompkins's vivid blooms, Clara ventured, "It's beautiful here. Just like the warmth the garden is bringing to our community." In that moment, Clara witnessed a flicker of understanding pass between them. It was a breaking of chains. The older woman's defenses seemed to dissolve little by little. Weeks turned into months, and just as the garden flourished, so did the relationships between the townsfolk. Clara felt the stories intertwining, the laughter ringing a little louder, the shadows of doubt beginning to fade. It was tea without challenges. There were days of drought and storms, both in weather and emotions, but they faced them together, out in the open. Then came the festival day to celebrate their harvest. The energy in Maple Creek was electric. Decorations of flowers adorned houses, and a large banner read "Grounded in Community." Clara, Ellie, and Jake worked side by side preparing food and making arrangements. They frequently found their hands busy, laughter overlapping their tasks, until it felt effortless. As people began to arrive at the fair, Clara beamed with joy. Children ran free among their laughter, the garden's bounty proudly displayed for everyone to share. They had not just planted seeds, they had cultivated connection, respect, and the beauty of togetherness. Moments later, Clara found herself standing at the podium, with the sun setting at her back, feeling so much love swelling within her heart. "Thank you all for believing, for coming together," she said, her voice breaking slightly with the weight of her gratitude. "Today isn't just about the food we share, it's about the love we nurture. This garden, like our community, is a living proof of growth through storms, through care, and a willingness to embrace." The crowd erupted in cheers, Michelle, Martha, and others visibly softening beside her, now warm faces of friendship illuminated in the twilight. Clara felt glowing smiles across the gathering, a family stitched together through shared struggles, fanning outwards, stronger than before, and as the night descended, Clara felt a comforting warmth wrap around her. The shadows of fear and mistrust were fading. Beyond their past, they had taken the bold steps towards change, towards love. In the end, Clara watched Ellie dance with the laughter of neighbors ringing in her ears, and a tender memory swept through her. Each flower they had planted would stand as a symbol of resilience, and with that, she realized this hope wasn't a distant dream. Hope was a shared reality, each bloom a testament to the power of community, and together, there was nothing they couldn't weather. As the stars twinkled brightly in the vast sky, Clara knew they were all in this together, forever transformed by love. This is your moment. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to subscribe now, because it's stories like these that will inspire us all. Don't wait not even one more second to share,